And we continue at 1:05 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
Kevin writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and the old downtown Oakland Target. I used to live in that general neck of the woods and would drive by it from time to time. Every time people tried to engage in, quote, mostly peaceful protests in 2020, the Target was the first to get looted. And once it became fashionable to loot, that Target had no chance.
Bye-bye, Target.
And then all the other Targets around it, what did they do instead of close?
How ghetto does it look that they have to lock up the socks?
Oh, yes. Buying your shampoo behind bulletproof glass. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is the editor of the California Globe. You can read her online at californiaglobe.com and follow her on X at Katy Sack Citizen. Katy Grimes, welcome.
Hi, John.
Well, hello. Thank you so much for stopping by on this Monday.
Good to be with you.
Well, I've been wanting to pick your brain about this for some time because it's a question that so many listeners have been emailing about, calling in about, trying to figure out just exactly what is going on with Gavin Newsom, with this podcast that he's now doing. Not the one with Marshawn Lynch that no one was paying attention to. He dropped them like a bad habit. Now he's doing a podcast where he's talking to different conservative, bold-faced names, and he's trying to find common ground on issues. He had his first episode with Charlie Kirk, who he said his son was a great big fan of. And during this conversation with Charlie Kirk, Gavin Newsom let it be known that he does not believe that biological men should be able to compete against women in women's sports. He also said that defund the police was crazy, and he's not a fan of Black Lives Matter. What do you make of him trying to position himself as a moderate Democrat or conservative Democrat even, right as he's about to be termed out of office and right before Democrats are going to start jockeying for the 2028 Democratic primary?
Well, as I wrote when we first addressed his new podcast, is Gavin Newsom is trying to distance himself from himself. He's got a 20-year history of supporting all of the most radical political policies and social justice ideas that are very, very well documented, even by friendly newspapers, going back to his days as mayor of San Francisco. Most recently, obviously, we know that Gavin Newsom has presidential aspirations. Hard to say that without gagging. And so, read the tea leaves somewhat. He recognized that a good chunk of the country voted for Trump. He claims he's trying to understand MAGA people by talking to MAGA people on his podcast, which is pure unadulterated BS. He's a politician first and foremost. He's also watching Andrew Cuomo try to rebrand himself as more moderate. We know Andrew Cuomo, former governor of New York, has presidential ambitions. And I think he's trying now to position himself as the new de facto head of the Democrat Party in America.
What's funny is if he wants to talk to MAGA people and understand them, he's the governor of a huge state. Why not talk to James Gallagher? He's the Republican leader in the state assembly. He operates in the same city as Gavin Newsom. He could have a Starbucks with him or a couple of drinks at Frank Fat's with him anytime he wants. And you talk to James Gallagher, and James Gallagher essentially says, I can't get Gavin Newsom on the phone, let alone have a face-to-face meeting with him. Same thing with the Republican leader in the state Senate, Brian Jones from the San Diego area. When he was running for governor, he refused to debate Larry Elder in the recall election. The debate that he had with Brian Daly, I think, was held in the witness protection program because it was meant for no one to see it. Same thing when he ran against John Cox the first time around. He's had many opportunities to talk to people who don't see the world the same way he does, but he's really not interested in talking to anyone here in California because we're in the sticks. He wants to talk to the national figures with national reputations because those are the people that are of the same caliber as him, and he sees himself as playing the showroom and not the lounge.
Boom. You just said it, John. That's exactly it. If you think back to Gavin Newsom's campaigns, going back to 2017-18 when he was running for governor, and then also when he was, running to try to prevent the recall election or from losing a recall. And then again, during COVID, Gavin Newsom, I've described him as he's always talking over the heads of the people in California to the broader national audience because he doesn't give a hoot what we think here. He wants the national approval, partly because, or maybe probably, John, because this is Gavin Newsom's California, the one that we're stuck with right now with all of these horrific problems. I mean, I recount at least 55 of them in my article from the other day, huge problems. This is Gavin Newsom's California, and he helped create these, but people on the national level are not going to drill down on these problems other than perhaps the most recent wildfire issue. So again, he's trying to distance himself from himself, which is what he created in California.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning of your answer there, where you talk about how he talks over our heads. Well, he's not just talking over our heads here in California. He's talking over the heads of the Democrats in the state legislature, Democratic leadership specifically. He does not regard them as equals. He regards them as being irritants who try to push him to take positions that are politically not sellable in places like Georgia and North Carolina and Pennsylvania. He doesn't have an open door policy with them. They have a very distant relationship with him. And now he pissed them off when he went on this podcast and he said that he doesn't believe that biological men should participate in women's sports. And instead of giving him the benefit of the doubt, which you would probably do if a friend or a coworker or someone you regard as an equal did something that you didn't like, they all went out and trashed him all over social media. Do you think in these last 2 years, if he both tries to position himself as a moderate and he tries to position himself as a national figure and not a state figure, do you think the animosity between him and the Democrats in the state legislature, that's going to bubble up?
Oh, I totally agree with you. And it's been bubbling for a long time. And when I say he talks over our heads, it's not that we don't understand what he's saying. He's broadcasting over our heads. But yes, that's been the rap on him, John. There isn't a person in the Capitol that I've been able to find who actually likes him or says he's worth trying to negotiate with because he talks down to all of them. He, as I've explained, when you listen to his announcement about his new podcast, everything is I, me. And that's all he's ever about. He's just trying to rebrand himself. I think it's going to bubble up, and I think it's going to get ugly, especially as he tries to play to the middle and the right with such a very, very radical left legislature who hates him.
You talk to some of these members who have been around a while, and they would say, even Republican members, if you wanted FaceTime with Jerry Brown, it wasn't hard to get. You could see him in the hallway. Sometimes he would wait in line at the Starbucks for his own order. You could see him there. He'd eat his lunch on a park bench. You could get Jerry Brown's attention whenever you wanted it. With Arnold Schwarzenegger, even though he was a movie star and a celebrity, he had the tent where everyone was invited to come smoke a cigar. You knew where he would be at a certain period of time, and if you wanted to talk to him, you could go talk to him at any point in time. With Gavin Newsom, he's just a figure they see on TV. He's not someone they work with. He's not someone they collaborate with. He's a distant figure who they really have no relationship with. Is that what you heard too?
Yeah, that is exactly. I mean, I've covered all three of these governors, and that is exactly as you describe it, and that is what we witness in the Capitol. I mean, from day one, Gavin tried to present himself as Mr. Open Door Policy. Even remember during his first State of the State speech, he was going to flip high-speed rail on its head, and he made all these promises. Within the week, he immediately completely turned around and proved he's a liar. So he's not made any friends in the Capitol with either party. I would say that most of the media in the state is of very, very poor. They have a very, very poor view of him, other than maybe one or two sycophants that he allows to fly around with him. But I can tell you, I've never, ever been able to ask him a question. And I have been covering Gavin Newsom since he was the mayor of San Francisco.
Do you think from his point of view, this was a free throw, a free shot rather, where he could make a statement like that, generate national attention, but not actually have a public policy position change that would require him to sign specific legislation or veto specific legislation? He's like a caller to a talk radio show where he just expressed an opinion on a public forum, but there was no follow through with, and I'm going to veto X, or and I'm going to support Y in the committee. There was no cost to him for making that statement when it comes to public policy.
Well, I don't know if we're going to know immediately whether there was a cost or not. And it was pretty disgusting to see how media all around the country just jumped on it. And the headlines were, Gavin's getting more moderate. Even Gavin doesn't believe in trans athletes and women's sports. Until it was such clickbait. And I think he and his media team planned it that way. I don't think it will weather well, though, John, because I think, as you point out, there was no there. There was nothing to follow it up. And if you listen to the entire podcast with Charlie Kirk, Charlie drills down on Gavin, and it's very, very quick to realize that he didn't mean that there was going to be a policy change. It was all words.
We're speaking with Katy Grimes, who you can read online at CaliforniaGlobe.com, where she is the editor. Katy, let's shift gears here for a second and talk about Kamala Harris, because it was revealed over the weekend that she would decide whether or not, if she's going to run for governor of California by the end of this summer, which at a minimum lets us know that she is seriously considering it. If she doesn't run for governor, word is she will be running for president and entering the Democratic primary for president. But the spin, at least the spin that I read in Politico, was that if she runs for governor, that means she's not going to run for president. It's an either-or proposition for her. What do you see going on with her and her team right now?
Well, I'm such a cynic when it comes to political consultants that I think her team really wants to keep her out there so they can continue making money. As far as their plan for her, I'm not so sure that the concept of her running for governor is such a great plan after all, especially now that we've learned that if she does in fact run for governor, that President Trump's special envoy to special projects, Rick Grinnell, said if she runs, then he will probably run against her. And as Congressman Kevin Kiley says, well, that'll guarantee us a Republican governor in California. I'm kind of that cynical about it.
It was also reported that if she jumps in, she would likely clear the field of Democratic candidates running for governor. We know that the Attorney General of California, Rob Bonta, announced that he would not be running for governor. While many expected him to jump in the race, he said, no. I'm going to run for re-election as Attorney General because I think Kamala is going to jump in the race for governor and she's going to clear the field, so I might as well get ahead of it and file for re-election. The other candidates who they speculated would get out of the race if Kamala jumped in is former Senator Tony Atkins, Tony Thurmond, the state superintendent of public instruction, Betty Yee, the former controller here in California. And the one name that they said may not be impacted by Kamala Harris and her decision is former LA Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa. They say that he is not part of that Democratic clique anymore, and he's doing his own thing. Is that true?
I have also heard that from some political gurus, but others that I have spoken to who live in Southern California say, no, he's a disaster. It's not going to work. He can't distance himself from the LA Democrats, much less the Democrat Party in California. So again, we're still so early. I haven't seen much else. I think the polling on it is very heavily weighted in her favor. So again, I'm pretty cynical at this moment. I just don't even know what to say about it. I'm kind of still in shock, actually.
If she doesn't get in, there's no clear favorite in that race, is there?
No, it doesn't look like it at all. When you look at the names you just mentioned, Tony Atkins, Tony Thurmond, Betty Yee, and then you go on the Republican side, Sheriff Chad Bianco, Rick Caruso, Steve Hilton is a possibility, Caitlyn Jenner is a possibility. I think it would be a free-for-all at this point.
And we haven't had one of those in a long time. Particularly, and one name that we both left off was Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, who's from one of the top 10 richest families in the state of California, who has the ability to spend Meg Whitman-style money in that race. So even though no one knows who she is right now, she can change that real fast if she wants to.
Yeah, she's an interesting one in that, yes, lots and lots and lots and lots of money. Lots of ambition, but no apparent political savvy. So, and I'm not so sure how the Democrat Party feels about her either. I think there's kind of a there.
Have you run into her in Sacramento at all? Because I talk to people up there, and they say she's an enigma, that she doesn't show up to anything. She's not really involved in any legislation. She's not really developing any kind of close relationships with any of the power players in the state legislature. She just kind of does her own thing.
Yeah, and I think it's an opportunity missed. I mean, we remember that Gavin Newsom whined and complained about how bored he was as lieutenant governor, also opportunity missed. This was a chance for Eleni Kounalakis, frankly, to elevate her own political chops by just showing up and being involved, getting involved in legislation, mixing and mingling with the lawmakers in the Capitol. Instead, I think she's another one like Gavin Newsom who thinks she shouldn't have to dirty her hands with all that work.
Katy Grimes, editor of the California Globe. You can read her online at californiaglobe.com and follow her on X at Katy Sac Citizen. Katy Grimes, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thank you, John.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we've hit the halfway point of today's show, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
All you got to do is go to KABC.com, click on podcasts, go to the Apple Podcast app, iHeart, Spotify, search for The John Phillips Show, hit subscribe. You can download all the episodes. You can do a Google on the YouTube or get that handy-dandy KABC app. Search KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android Store. It's the easiest way to listen live to this radio station and download all the podcasts. And I highly recommend that you subscribe and listen because it's either you're going to listen to us or Pamela Price.
Check out Pamela Price Unfiltered. I'm Pamela Price, your host, and that's where we get to correct the record.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Oh, boy, it's a big one. Here we go. 790 KABC welcomes global phenomenon and illusionist David Blaine at the Encore Theater at Wynn, Las Vegas, with 6 headlining performances through April 2025. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-790-5222 gets a one-night stay at Wynn Las Vegas and a pair of tickets to the show. This is furnished by Wynn Las Vegas. I'm so jealous. Good luck dialing.
Whenever someone has a problem in the city of Los Angeles, whether it is the fact that there was no water in the fire hydrants, or you have a sidewalk that's buckled and hasn't been fixed in a long time, there's a pothole on your street, you're being robbed and you call 911 and no one shows up. Whatever the case may be, what are you constantly told when the city fails to do what they're supposed to do? We don't have the time. we don't have the resources. It's just not possible. So then you ask yourself the question, okay, if you don't have the time or resources to make sure there's water in the fire hydrants, or that emergencies are responded to, or that potholes get fixed, or sidewalks get fixed, what is it that you're spending your time on? And Randy, we now know the answer to that.
The city of Los Angeles has been harassing a homeowner in Sherman Oaks to get rid of a treehouse that he's had in his front yard for 25 years.
Because that's the most pressing problem in the city of Los Angeles.
We can't do anything about homeless encampments in Nithya Raman's district, but we can harass a homeowner that pays property taxes to get rid of something that he's had for a quarter of a century.
Good Lord.
For more on the Sherman Oaks homeowner being forced to tear down his treehouse, here's KTLA.
It is the final night for what may be one of the most iconic tree houses ever built. The Boney Island treehouse in Sherman Oaks is scheduled to be torn down tomorrow after its owner endured a long, drawn-out legal battle with the city to keep it standing.
Doing a great job, Los Angeles.
So not only are they spending their time on this, they're spending a lot of time on this.
Yep.
The Simpsons producer who built the treehouse says he's had lots of support from the neighborhood, but in the end, you can't fight City Hall.
Rachel Menitoff is live in Sherman Oaks, where community is saying goodbye to Boney Island after 24 years. Rachel.
Micah Scher, the homeowner, says it came to a point where the red tape, the restrictions, and finally the criminal charges were all...
Criminal charges?
Boy, they're going after this guy like he's Jack the Ripper.
How about we go after the actual criminals or the homeless?
Oh, no. Equity.
Criminal charges were all too much to bear. And
You know, there was an opportunity in the most recent election to not give Nithya Raman another 4 years, and she won outright in the damn primary.
But L.A.'s going to L.A.
Criminal charges were all too much to bear. And tonight he's been removing a lot of the props, the furniture, kind of having one last hurrah with the neighborhood kids, and says he's really sad to see this place go. Climbing through this whimsical maze, you notice the carefully constructed details.
I mean, it is a cool-looking treehouse.
Oh, yeah. Every kid would want one of those in their yard.
Sitting high above the Sherman Oaks treetops, it's an homage to childhood. And throughout the years, it's been updated with more adult features like a bar and a mini fridge of beers.
Oh, hell yes.
Okay, now Randy wants one.
A bar and a mini fridge of beers.
Drinking up in the trees? Now that's a good time.
Okay, if you're blowing a point too, though, how do you get down?
It just felt really...
Is that what they're going after him for, not having a liquor license?
Maybe.
It just felt really nice and homey up here, you know?
Rick Polizzi, a former producer on the animated series The Simpsons, built the treehouse 24 years ago with his daughters in mind.
24 years ago.
And they decided now is the time to force this man to take it down.
City of Los Angeles has some wild priorities.
They would have their friends come over and play, and any neighbor that came by, we would say, come on up.
And since that time, it's been featured in segments on HGTV, America's Got Talent, and has drawn A-list celebrities to the neighborhood for an annual Halloween bash.
Everybody that you saw in movies and TV were always here with their families. You know, people are saying, hey, is that Halle Berry up in the treehouse?
Boy, I didn't realize this guy's a bigger name dropper than Peter Tilden.
By the way, if you're the council person for that district and all of these celebrities love this treehouse, wouldn't politically it benefit you to stand on the side of the homeowner and get the city to back off?
You would think so, but Nithya already got her reelection, so screw those people.
But Polizzi says legal troubles started when a neighbor complained about the increasing attention the homemade fort was drawing.
Okay, John, I'm just going to have you guess what the first name is of that neighbor.
Would it be Karen?
Karen, why are you doing this?
For the past 7 years, he's been working to defend his treasured treehouse to the tune of $50,000 and even a criminal charge. The Hollywood producer says
And the city sides with the nosy neighbor who needs to get a life?
Of course. And believe me, I've had a lot of experience with that.
Oh, if this happened in Palm Springs, this guy would be in prison.
The Hollywood producer says he's spent countless hours trying to acquire the right permits and comply with zoning requirements, only to get the runaround from City Hall.
It's just all these crazy restrictions.
If you cannot get the permits to keep a treehouse that you already built in your neighborhood, how exactly is the Palisades going to rebuild?
No, and this is the perfect example as to why none of that's going to happen in a timely fashion, because this is how these people operate. They're not there to be consumer friendly or homeowner friendly or resident friendly. They are there to gum everything up, and that's what they do best. They know nothing else. This is why, as much as people crap all over DOGE at the federal level, it's why it's necessary, because the government is built to prevent you from doing what you're supposed to be doing. And if that's the case, how is there any progress? How do we move the ball forward at all? At the city level, when you're dealing with something like this, if you can't build a treehouse, how is anything going to happen? How are we going to be prepared for the Olympics? And the answer is we're not.
It's just all these crazy restrictions for a treehouse that's 115 square feet. And it just became a nightmare trying to go back and forth between departments and the Department of Building and Safety. Everybody passes you to someone else.
This is yet another bad story for Karen Bass.
Yes. But you know what, though? She brought it on herself, because instead of being someone who wants to reform this, she is part of it, and she defends it.
Councilmember Nithya Raman sent us a statement saying she's limited in what she can say due to ongoing litigation.
Oh, stop it.
No, you are duly elected by the people of L.A., of your district. You can do or say whatever you want. The only people you're accountable to are them.
Councilmember Nithya Raman sent us a statement saying she's limited in what she can say due to ongoing litigation. But she did write this: "Our goal has always been to find a pathway to preserve the treehouse."
No, it's not.
No. If you're the council person, you start banging pots and pans, and you do whatever it takes.
This thing is already, it's not even that he wanted to build a treehouse. This thing got built and has been sitting there for 24 years.
And hasn't been a problem until some Karen decided that she was going to call it into the city.
Our goal has always been to find a pathway to preserve the treehouse, which has brought so much joy to neighbors.
That's BS.
And our office is ready and eager to continue that work in cooperation with Mr. Polizzi.
He's tearing it down.
Boy, we really do live in North Korea, don't we?
We have the absolute worst elected local representatives you could imagine, and we have nobody but ourselves to blame for that. There was a common sense, normal guy running in that race, and he got knocked out because we had to keep Nithya.
Got knocked out in the first round.
Polizzi, though, says months ago this same office told him there was nothing they could do. So he's resigned to take it down and say one final goodbye.
I'm shocked that Nithya Raman is a liar.
Wait, I thought she was the can-do councilwoman.
There's no reason for it. It's really not warranted.
By the way, this is Sherman Oaks. How many homeless encampments has Nithya Raman taken down in that area?
Oh, she doesn't have time for that.
There's no reason for it. It's really not warranted. It's been up 24 years. We've never had one single incident. It just gets caught up in city red tape, and there's no way to untangle yourself from it.
I would be surprised if this guy moves, and then there is more high-end tax base leaving the city of Los Angeles.
If this guy moves and the neighbors were the ones that called this in and caused this nightmare to happen, I hope he sells to someone who turns that into a crack house.
Now, part of the agreement with the city is that once Rick demolishes the treehouse, the criminal charges against him will be dropped.
Criminal charges for having a treehouse on your property.
Think about that the next time they say they don't have room in jail for some violent animal, but they're willing to put this guy in jail.
The criminal charges against him will be dropped. So he has a construction crew coming out first thing tomorrow morning, and they're going to do exactly that. We're live in Sherman Oaks tonight. I'm Rachel Menitoff. Cher Micah, back to you.
I would love to know who this homeowner voted for. Did he vote for Nithya? Or did he vote for the normal one? Because if he voted for Nithya, I can only feel so sorry for him. If he voted for the other one, I'm sorry this is happening to you. But this is what Los Angeles does. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Getting a lot of reaction to the treehouse in Sherman Oaks that the city of Los Angeles forced to take down. Will writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Randy, I think we should add brain after noodle when people reference Nithya Ramen Noodle Brain. She's so useless, I wonder if she fell out of a treehouse. And Penny writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and says, I wonder if the neighborhood kids, the down-ass kids, didn't like it.
The neighborhood kids, the down-ass kids don't like it.
If you were to weigh in on the city of L.A. forcing that treehouse to come down, give us a call at 800-222-5222, 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to Ted in L.A. Ted, hello.
Hi, John. I'm familiar with the city. We were in court for 2 years because we kept our home as mandated by the CNRs as a horse property. We appeared in front of 8 different judges, and I submitted the CCNRs showing that our house was the only home that continued to be a horse property, and they didn't even read them. My wife was dying of cancer. I mean, it's unbelievable what the city does. Finally, they said, in the interest of judgment, we are going to drop the charges. That took 2.5 years, and it was because somebody finally read the CCNR. So, I believe it.
They do not exist to be consumer friendly. They do not exist to be homeowner friendly. They exist to protect themselves and their bureaucracy. And their bureaucracy is not meant to make life easy on the people who pay their bills.
Absolutely. I'm really sorry for him. I'm in the same business. I write comedy. And it's just, we're retired people. I can't tell you how much money this costs us. It's unreal.
Well, thank you so much for the call, sir. I appreciate it.
Did he just get sirened?
I don't think he was doing anything wrong, but I bet you the down-ass kids were.
Well, if you take a call in the city of Los Angeles, that's always a possibility.
Let's go to Kevin in Upland. Kevin, hello.
Hey, good morning. Good afternoon, John. It's been a while. Hey, I just happen to be a contractor, and I can tell you what this guy needs to do. He needs to ask for a stay from the Department of Building and Safety. Give me a moment to get in compliance. What it is, this is similar to an illegal room addition. This stuff happens all the time. What the city will do is they will allow you to hire an architect to draw up blueprints and an engineer to determine if it's safe or not. And then they look at whether or not the structure is in compliance with city codes. So if you do an illegal room addition, you can leave it up, but it's going to get inspected. And they'll do destructive testing, like they'll drill the slab and make sure the slab is the correct thickness, and they'll make you pull out some drywall and make sure the studs are in the right place and all that. But he might be able to get a building permit. It's a stretch, but if he knew how to play the game, he would hire an architect, hire an engineer, prove the thing is safe, show that it's in compliance with the building codes of the city of Los Angeles, and he can do all that. He has to pay for the permit, of course, and then they'll come out and inspect it and determine it's safe and it's compliant. I'm not understanding why he hasn't done that yet.
All right. Thank you for the call, sir. Let's go to Dave in Ontario. Dave, welcome.
Hey, guys. Great show. Hey, that last caller had good ideas, but mine is the most simplest idea. You got to get some homeless people in that treehouse tonight. There's no way the city's going to evict them.
Okay, the minute they start doing the meth, though, what happens when they light it on fire?
Well, I mean, there are downsides to this solution, of course, but I'm thinking, they never evict homeless people from anywhere, so why not?
I like the way you think. Thank you for the call, sir.